It was just another busy evening at the high-end bistro, orders flying in, pans sizzling, and the head chef barking instructions like a drill sergeant. Into this chaos walked a quiet woman in a simple dress, asking if they were hiring. The chef, barely looking up, scoffed. "Can you even cook something more complex than toast?" he snapped. She smiled politely, saying she had some experience in the kitchen. That was enough for him to throw down a challenge. "Fine," he said. "Make the duck confit with truffle jus and see if you survive my kitchen." The staff exchanged glances, some amused, some pitying her. No one lasted long under this chef's iron rule, especially not someone who looked like she'd never stepped into a professional kitchen. He handed her the recipe with a smirk, certain she'd quit before the oil even got hot. But something about her calm eyes gave one of the sous chefs pause. There was no fear, no hesitation, just quiet confidence. As she got to work, the chef returned to his usual chaos, barely paying attention. But then, one by one, the kitchen began to slow. Eyes turned toward her station. The way she held the knife, the precision of her movements, the smell rising from the pan. It wasn't beginner's luck. It was something else. Still, the head chef didn't notice. He wouldn't, until it was time to taste the final dish. And when he did, nothing in his career could have prepared him for what came next. Who was this woman? And what secret had just walked into his kitchen, hidden behind that simple smile? Stay tuned, because the reveal will shake the entire restaurant and the chef's ego to its core. The dish sat in front of the head chef, steam curling upward, rich with the scent of truffle and crisped duck skin. He frowned, fork in hand, expecting a disaster. One bite and his expression froze. The flavors were balanced to perfection. The texture, flawless. It wasn't just good, it was world-class. But instead of praise, he pushed the plate away, trying to hide the shock settling in his chest. "You followed the instructions well," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. She only nodded, wiping her hands quietly and stepping back into the shadows of the kitchen, as if she hadn't just rattled the foundation of his confidence. The staff exchanged whispers now, curious, confused. A few began to ask around. No one knew her name. She hadn't even given a resume. She'd just walked in with that calm voice and steady hands, and suddenly, the mood of the kitchen was shifting. Later that night, as the kitchen emptied and the chef stayed behind, he stared at her dish again. It haunted him. He'd spent years perfecting his craft, breaking down others who thought they could cook. So how did a woman with no credentials, no attitude, and no flashy words manage to outshine him in a matter of minutes? The next day, he ordered the staff not to bother her. "Let's see what else she can do," he said, but his tone was laced with suspicion. She didn't argue, she just got back to work. Day by day, dish after dish, she kept surprising everyone. But still, no one knew where she came from, or how she'd learned to cook like that. What none of them realized, yet, was that they weren't watching a newcomer trying to prove herself. They were watching a Michelin star chef hiding in plain sight. Whispers spread fast in a kitchen like that. By the end of the week, everyone had a theory. Some thought she was a private chef for a billionaire. Others said she was trained in France, maybe even at Le Cordon Bleu. But no one dared ask her directly. She was polite, kind even, but there was a quiet wall around her, like she didn't want to be known. The head chef, on the other hand, couldn't let it go. His ego had taken a hit he hadn't expected. He'd built his reputation on being the best, tough, demanding, unbeatable. But now every dish she made only reminded him of how far she was ahead of him, even though she never showed off. He started watching her more closely, not to learn, but to find a weakness. He convinced himself there had to be one. Behind the scenes, the owner of the restaurant took notice. She began asking questions, looking at customer reviews. People were noticing a change. "Who's behind the new flavors?" A food blogger wrote. "There's something different happening in that kitchen." The chef took credit, of course, but the staff knew the truth, and the tension grew. Meanwhile, One of the younger line cooks, Sam, started bonding with her during prep. He'd ask little things, like where she learned to slice so perfectly or how she balanced flavors so effortlessly. She never gave full answers, only smiled and redirected. But one evening, Sam caught a glimpse of a small tattoo on her wrist, barely visible beneath her sleeve, a Michelin star inked in black. He didn't say a word, but now he knew, and he wasn't the only one. The real question was, why was a Michelin star chef hiding in a small-town kitchen, pretending to be nobody? And how long could she keep that secret? The pressure in the kitchen was rising, and it wasn't just from the stoves. Orders were pouring in, and customers were now asking specifically for dishes they'd seen on food blogs, dishes she had made. The head chef felt the controls slipping from his hands. For the first time, the spotlight wasn't on him. He started pushing harder, giving her the most difficult tasks, shouting louder, acting like nothing had changed. But underneath, he was unraveling. That night, the restaurant was hosting a private event. A well-known food critic was coming, someone whose reviews could make or break a reputation. The chef had one goal: impress the critic and prove he was still the star. But just as the orders began, he accidentally reassigned her to dishwashing. Said it was a staffing mix-up. She didn't protest. She just nodded, removed her apron, and walked to the back sink. But Sam saw it all. So did the rest of the team. And for the first time, they weren't laughing behind her back. They were angry. As the dinner began, things quickly spiraled out of control. The critic's order, an intricate seafood risotto, was delayed. The staff fumbled under pressure, and the chef, trying to do everything himself, grew more frantic. Plates were rushed out, mistakes piled up, and tension boiled over. In the corner, she quietly watched, her hands still, her eyes calm. Then came the moment no one expected. The critic sent back the plate, cold, under-seasoned, and shockingly average. The chef froze, pale and silent, as whispers ran through the dining room. The entire kitchen looked to the back, to the woman still standing by the sink. Was this the moment she would finally step in? Or would she let the empire fall, dish by dish, knowing it was never really hers to begin with? Just as the chef stood frozen, humiliated by the returned plate and the stunned silence of the dining room, the restaurant doors opened again. A second guest entered, not part of the reservation list, but instantly recognized by a few staff members. It was Chef Antoine Leclerc, a world-renowned culinary judge known for scouting talent for elite cooking competitions and luxury restaurants. No one knew he was coming, not even the owner. He simply said, "I heard something special was happening in this kitchen." The head chef's face drained of color. This was the worst possible timing, or maybe his last chance to prove himself. With forced confidence, he welcomed Antoine, promising a signature dish that would define the restaurant's new direction. In reality, he had nothing prepared. Panic set in. Meanwhile, back at the dish pit, the woman quietly wiped her hands and disappeared into the walk-in fridge. Sam followed her, lowering his voice. "He's going to burn this place down trying to prove something. You can't just watch." She hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen door, then down to the small tattoo on her wrist. "I didn't come here to be seen," she whispered. "I came here to disappear." But before she could step away again, Antoine caught sight of her through the glass. His eyes narrowed. He knew that face. Years ago, she'd made headlines. A rising star, then suddenly gone, vanished after walking away from her Michelin-starred restaurant without warning. Now the pressure wasn't just on the food, it was on the secret. If Antoine recognized her, everything she had tried to keep hidden would explode into the open. The question wasn't just whether she would cook again. It was whether she could outrun her past, or if it had just walked back into her life wearing a tailored chef's coat. The room was quiet, heavy with tension, as Chef Antoine stepped deeper into the kitchen. His eyes never left her. "I know you," he said softly. "I judged you once in Paris. You disappeared. No one ever knew why." Every head turned toward her, even the head chef, who now looked more like a ghost than a leader. She stepped forward slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "I left because I forgot why I loved cooking," she said, voice calm but firm. "It became about stars and press, not people. I wanted to cook without the noise." The staff listened, frozen. The chef stared, realizing the truth. She had been 10 steps ahead of him the entire time. Antoine didn't smile, but he nodded. "Cook for me," he said simply. "One plate. No pressure." The kitchen sprang to life, but now with her at the center. She moved with quiet control, pulling ingredients with purpose, guiding the team, not barking orders, just leading by example. Sam prepped the herbs. Another cook plated with her. Even the head chef stood aside, watching the dish come together with a strange mix of awe and regret. She placed the finished plate in front of Antoine. He tasted it, just one bite. Then he set the fork down and looked up. "This," he said, "is the kind of dish stars are built around." The room burst into whispers. But before anyone could celebrate, she stepped back. "Thank you," she said, "but I'm not coming back to that world." The twist hit like a final note in a symphony. She didn't want the spotlight, she wanted peace. Antoine smiled this time. "Then maybe the world needs to come to you." And just like that, the woman they thought was a mystery became the reason that Little Kitchen would never be the same again. After that night, everything changed, quietly but surely. The woman, once thought to be just a simple newcomer, didn't return to the world of Michelin stars and high-pressure kitchens. Instead, she stayed in that small restaurant, not as a star, but as a mentor, a teacher, and a reminder of what cooking should be about: passion, connection, and heart. The head chef, humbled by everything that had happened, began to soften. He stopped yelling and started listening to his team, to the food and to the customers. He even approached her one afternoon, not with arrogance, but with respect. "Thank you," he said. "You reminded me why I started cooking in the first place." Sam, the young cook who'd quietly admired her from the start, found a new purpose too. Under her guidance, he began to grow, not just as a chef, but as a person who understood that success isn't just about stars or fame. It's about the love put into every dish, the joy in every bite. The restaurant itself gained a new reputation, not just for fancy dishes or critic approval, but for warmth, authenticity, and flavors that told stories. Food bloggers kept coming back, not just for the meals, but for the story behind them. The story of the Michelin star chef who chose simplicity over fame. In the end, the biggest lesson wasn't about complex recipes or culinary awards. It was about courage, the courage to step away from expectations and follow your own path, even if it means starting small. And as for the woman, she continued to cook quietly, letting her dishes speak louder than any accolade ever could. Because sometimes the greatest success isn't the one everyone sees, but the one that feeds the soul.